Hello, back again. Another week of data. Maybe for you it's another week, but for me it's about 30 seconds since the last lecture I did. And I'm very happy to be doing this one because we just get them out of the way. Data reporting. So last week we talked about queries, getting data from your database, taking a random table, maybe two or three tables, joining them together and making another output from it. So a query has an input and a query has an output. An output of a query looks just like a table. Let's go show you that. So we've got a query. Let's see. Can we undo? Oh, look at that. Never used to be able to undo in this. You can't undo very far anyway. So let's grab a few more fields. TDAG1, code ID. Get rid of the criteria. So you'll see that DS1KH60, it's got rows, it's got columns, it's got column names, it's got values. The one thing about a table is you can actually type things into it. You can actually edit it. Not very. I wouldn't suggest it because your data is going to be wrong. But you can edit a table. You can't. Whereas queries, on the other hand, you run a query, change the query view. It looks just like a table. It's got rows, it's got columns. It's another view of the table that looks just the same. It's got a certain number of records. You can go through it record by record. The one thing is you can't add data to it. You can't edit it. You can't. This record set is not updatable. You can't edit a query. You can edit the raw data. But it acts just like a table. That's what I'm trying to get at. And what are we trying to do here? What are some of the nice things that we can do with queries to make up more complex queries? So, we want to, in this lecture, we're going to get better at queries. We're going to do some reports. We're going to, and think about data export and import too, because you got to get data out of your database. You got to get data into your database. So tables are nice, but if we only want a database of tables, we could use a spreadsheet. Reports and queries allow you to reshape the data in shapes that are more useful. Reshape, filter. So what are some of the things we want to do to our queries? We got too many rows. So a couple ways to get rid of rows is to get rid of low entries that are small. We could do the top end query. So let's have a look at some of those. I don't want to. So we've got a query here. We're going to count the number of people in every group. Again, just drag any old field down there and turn a count on around that. And so that gives us, that person, that code, that gender. Code ID is the same. Let's get rid of code ID. Let's change that to ASCII desk, and we'll get rid of gender because get rid of length of stay and gender. Great. So how many people are in each one? That many. Oh, that's the whole database too. We want K50. Great. So those are the K50 people. Then the number of people and the number of in each criteria. So actually, I think K5 is how we went last time. Great. So these are all the things that start with K5 and the number each. So it's kind of a bit hard to look at all these. So let's just give us the top 10. How do you get the top 10 of those? Well, the first thing you do is you sort descending on the count. So then at least you can see the top 10. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So how do we chop off everything after that line? Well, we can do that with this thing called top 10. Return, and we just type in a 10 there. And now when we run it, we get the top 10. It chopped everything else off. So that's really quite useful to do. We'll call that the top 10 query. Great. So sort it and then chop it off, and that gives us that query. And now we've saved our query. It's down here. We could copy it and paste it. Yeah. So now we've got two versions of that query. Yeah, top 10. So another way to filter out things is to say, well, I want ones that are bigger than a certain amount, and so we'll do that one. And this one, we'll edit this query. Go at the design view of that query, and so instead of looking at the top 10, we're going to return all. We're going to say, I want the ones that are over a certain amount. So we could greater than 100. Yeah, so the criteria say I want this count. So after the count is finished, I want the count to be greater than 100. And sure enough, all of these are greater than 100. In fact, I think is that the same? So top 10? Let's say greater than 50, just to make sure I didn't just do something wrong. Yeah, greater than 50. Beautiful. So that's another way to do it. You don't have to sort it then. You're just taking some hard cutoff value and doing that way. Yeah. So too many rows, top end queries. You need to do two things. You've got to sort it in descending order, and you've got to return a certain number of values. You can also filter low values, and we just showed that as well. So finally, when you've got a query that does a certain job for you, you can use the join to use it as a filter on another data set. This is profound. This is very useful. So you've done a whole bunch of work creating this beautiful filter, this set of codes. So let's go back to our thing. So we've got a set of codes here. We've got the top 10 query has got a set of codes. The most used types of K5 codes in the whole database. We've selected them out. If we didn't have that top 10, we'll go back in the chain. We'll say return all. If we didn't have that, we'd have 64 records. So we've done very well here. We changed it so we can only look at 10 records. But sometimes we might want to do something like we might want to say something. Well, given those 10 records, tell me something else about them. Tell me something about their gender or their length of stay. How do we do that? So if we just created another query, let's make another query. Create query design. If we just created another query and we just grab the again diagnosis and DS1 record, and we got sex and length of stay, and we wanted to say, give me the ASCII desk and the TDIAG1. So given all those codes, how could we find out we know that they start with K5 star. Well, how could we talk about the top 10? We run that, we say, okay, give us the length of stay for all these 7,000 records. So let's say we wanted to do the average length of stay by gender for those 7,000 records. Or and then also the number of records. So why not grab length of stay again? We'll count. So that gives us the average length of stay, the count for each of these records. So there's two genders. There should only be 20 records here, but there are 121. Why is that? Because we haven't filtered out the top 10. The top 10 has got. Let me just save that one. I'll save that. That's not top 10 anymore. Yes. What? It's actually greater than 50. Yeah, so it's not the top 10 anymore. This is sorry. The top 10 query has only those ones: constipation, non-infective gastroenteritis, other unspecified intestinal obstruction. So it's only got 10. So if you take those multiplied by two genders, there should only be 20 records in the result. Why is there? But this one, it's got so many. How do we make it so that this one only obliges to those top 10 query? So we use the top 10 query as a criteria on this. So what we do is we drag the top 10 query in. It's a table like any other table, and we can join it. We're going to join that TDAG1 to that TDAG1. Now we're not going to use any of these values. We could use count of length of stay in the final report. We could, but we're not going to use any of those values right now. We're just going to run that. It's all that's going to do is go from 121 to 20. So now it's got those 10 TDAG1s, the two genders, and the average length of stay, and how many records there are on each one. Isn't that amazing? So we actually do have, let's drag count of length of stay back in there again. And so now we can say things like, okay, given, I think that one, because that one's named wrong. Let's, sometimes it gets a bit in trouble with a name. So let's just change that to a different field, because you can count any field you want and it'll work. So yeah, so there's a, so of these 1737, 1112 out of 1737 was female. 625 out of 737 was male. There's so that's we use this data from the top 10 query. This data is counted in this query, and we bring them together. We only have the 20. Use that query as a filter on this query. So we could call this one top 10. Top 10 by gender. So it does the same thing. It does that top 10 by gender. So it takes the top 10 query and combines it with back with the same data again. Actually, one thing about top 10 query is we've said like K5 star. We actually don't even need to do that now, because that is done by this line here. It's still got the same top 10 because we've already filtered it out. So nice. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to pause for a second.